tree in the middle of the road.
No, 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 no. Oh my God.
Welcome, from fans. Thank you for tuning in as we're going to recap episode 3 of season 3. But before I get into all that, I have a very special guest today. I wanted to share with you an interview I did earlier this week with Ricky He, aka Kenny, about episode 3 and his character's journey throughout season 3 itself. So take a listen, let me know what you think. And right after that interview, we're going to go right into our full review of episode 3. Hey, Ricky, great to see you again. Last time I talked to you was season 2. I feel like I should be giving you a hug after everything you've been going through for these last couple episodes.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to start there. They always say with actors, you want to try and channel real life experiences into your roles, and especially with dramatic scenes. What did you tap into with these last 2 episodes concerning losing your mother? Because it really felt like in that last hour or episode 2 that you really went through the 5 stages of grief all within that 1 hour. I thought it was an excellent performance.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was um yeah, it took a lot of preparation, and it was very challenging stuff because I didn't you can kind of have how do how do I no, I'm stuttering because I'm going through it again a bit. I think that in order to do it like authentically and like honor the piece and like try to be as truthful as I can be with what's going on, um, I didn't want it to just be like me being so overwhelmed with pain and grief and sadness that I'm just like a soppy mess the whole way through. Because when I read it, that was my initial reaction, which was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And then you turn the page, "Oh my God, it's getting worse," and you're just like crying the whole time. But it's like in order to like honor like real grief and like real experiences like that, it's like um, there was a decision in my head that like for Kenny in front of other people, he didn't want to let it out. He needed to put on the optics that I'm fine, I'm still a leader, I'm okay, I'm all right, I'm okay. Um, Only in privacy can he kind of succumb to all that grief and pain and basically kind of revert back to like a little boy. And I think that it's why when he gets into the diner, he was hoping that that was going to be his moment of solitude to just let loose, and then he walks in and Claire's there and he's like, oh, snap, and then she leaves and he's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna cry my fucking eyes out now. And then Christy walks in and he's just like, okay, I need a second, I need a second. So all of that was like it was a lot of moving pieces, and in order to do it like truthfully was yeah, it was really challenging. It was a lot of work.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because we've seen episode 3 that Christy is still trying to want to talk and understand your feelings. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, Kenny's trying to be a leader. He's not trying to hear any of that. Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel his stance with her as far as trying to be guarded, that's going to soften after, she got injured in that episode and they were able to save her? Do you
Mm-hmm.
think now he's going to be more willing to open up to her?
I think that and again, I think it's accurate to real life in the sense that like uh when really traumatic or really painful things happen, you try to put your mind on something else. You try to focus your attention on something else, and you almost get kind of singular on it. Um and I think his singular mission right now is like provide for the town, support the town, feed the town the way my mother did. You know what I mean? And so he's going, 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 going. And I think what happens in episode 3 kind of reminds him that you know, you cannot do that at the expense of others. You cannot do that at the expense of the people that you care about because there are real consequences. And so I don't know that it necessarily softens him, but I think it acts as a reminder to him that like, well, if the goal is to take care of people, take care of people. You know what I mean?
Got it. And then the big thing that happens at the end of episode 3, Tabitha ends up back in the town after having so much time outside of it. What do you think Kenny's take will be with her? Will he be happy with what she did, or is he going to feel like, no, you could have did more than just bring Victor's father back?
uh, Look, a lot of the people in town are in a hurry to get out. Uh, Kenny is probably also, but he's like, Man, I don't have to get out right now. My parents are dead. We should leave this poor lady alone. I think a little bit. I think he's like confused, but he's willing to hear it out because he's not, you know, what I mean, he's not. It doesn't serve him to badger Tabitha, but like you didn't do enough, yada yada yada. I think he's very indifferent at this point.
Got it, got it. Now, I know you can't give me an answer on this, but I wanted to just run this by you. A little prediction that I've been having with Fatima. I'm assuming that she has a night creature growing in her or something like that. And I think
Okay.
Elgin, a little vision of that lady he's been seeing, I think
Uh-huh.
that's some version of Tabitha in the future for whatever reason.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so I'm hoping that we'll get a resolution with that by the end of the season. But from your take, do you think this season, by the end of it, will have a lot of questions answered, or do you think we're going to have even more questions than what we've had the last two seasons?
We're certainly gonna have some questions answered. The answers to these questions will be a little cryptic, as things are on the show. So because of the nature of that, some new questions will arise. But I think this is the first time where the fog is slowly being lifted, and you can kind of make out the shapes that you're seeing on the horizon. You don't know exactly what they are, but it's not like full mist anymore, and you can't see where you're going. You're like, okay, I know what direction we're heading now. Um, the question is just what's at the end of the road. So that's all I can say.
Perfect, perfect. Ricky, I appreciate your time. Looking forward to seeing Kenny's journey for the rest of the season. Welcome, Trump fans. We are back to cover episode 3 of season 3. Thank you for joining me once again. Just to let you know, I'm on the road to try and get 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm a little bit over 8,200. So if you like the content, like the reviews, make sure you like and subscribe and turn on your notifications to get these reviews every single week. So enough of that. Let's get right into the episode entitled Mousetrap. I gotta say, right off the bat, I'm very upset with Tabitha. I was giving her a bunch of props last week. Now that she was kind of crowned the chosen one, or we know she's been chosen to try and liberate the children, all that's out the window now. She basically, I won't say threw it all away, but it felt like we were so close to really getting answers. You know, she was going to be seeing the tree, which I'm going to call the tree of from. That was a tree that possibly could be the link to the real world and the portal to the from community. And maybe that was a way to jump back and forth and eventually be able to save anybody. But all it took was a Joni Mitchell song and finding the charm that Jim originally lost for her to lose it and flip out and cause an accident. And now they're back in the town with more questions than answers. I think the way that went down kind of revealed a little bit more about how this world functions because we talked before, and even Henry was talking about this in the montage last week at the end when they were all together for uh, Tien Chen's funeral. He said that Miranda, before she disappeared, the vision that she was having was, a town that you couldn't escape. You were led to running around in circles because of your grief. And I think that's the key about what happened with Tabitha, because when she saw that charm that originally she gave Jim, that Henry was saying that, oh, my wife made that for me. She started saying, well, what if I don't want to play the game anymore? What if I get out of this car? Will that make everything reset? And I think that was her fatal mistake because you have to look at this as how you look at life. Life, when you decide that, you're giving up, you don't want to continue moving forward, you just had enough. That's how you end up back in the same place in the world of grief and misery, which in this universe is represented by the front town. So when she decided that she wasn't going to keep fighting, that she wasn't going to keep going forward with, trying to reunite Henry with his son, trying to, liberate her family, when she just decided she was going to opt out, that's when everything fell apart and she ended up exactly back in the town, what, not even 10 minutes later? So I think that's kind of the key. You have to have hope in order to continue to function and to kind of stave off the night creatures and destruction. So Tabitha is going to have to find that back if she wants to liberate the children. Now I got to get at the children a little bit. They could help this along if the boy in white would kind of show up. We haven't seen him since the first episode, and now we're on episode 3. He hasn't shown up and given any hints whatsoever. I don't know if that indicates that Tabitha is on the right track or not, but it would be nice if he gave her a little bit of help. But I really think once we get back to that tree in Henry's world, that's the portal that can take you back and forth between his world and the from world. But now that this crash has happened and they're back in the town, I have the unfortunate prediction that we're not going to see that tree probably not until we get to the finale or close to the finale. So essentially the second half of the season. So that's a bit annoying. I kind of always hate those type of car crashes. We see that in movies and TV shows. It almost feels like a cop out, when they're trying to just jump to another situation. So hopefully we won't see that anymore, but I think we're not going to see that tree for a while. So thumbs down to Tabitha. Hope she gets it together. We'll see where that goes. But the big thing is we're going to see, hopefully next episode, Henry get reunited with Victor. And we'll see how that goes. That's going to be a very emotional reunion when it does happen. So I'm looking forward to that. The next thing, I'm going to kind of build on what I said last week, my prediction that Fatima is going to either turn into a night creature or she's going to give birth to a night creature. I think this whole pregnancy thing is not going to be the radiant hope for the future that everyone has. I think it's going to end up destroying her. And I think Ellis is going to have to mirror his father in killing the woman that he loves in order to save the town. Now, this episode actually doubled down on that as far as I'm concerned and helped me have a little bit more confidence in that prediction. Essentially, what happened was she started eating the rotten food again, but she didn't keep an eye out good enough. And Tilly saw her, but instead of freaking out, Tilly told her that I had kind of the same cravings. When I was pregnant with my second kid, I like to lick eggshells. And I mentioned before last week that this is a legit medical condition called pica, where women will have cravings for non-nutritional, non-food items, like eating dirt, um, eating laundry powder, all types of stuff. So it's a legit condition. And I think that's why Tilly was so sympathetic, like, hey, you're not going insane. This is completely normal. But in order to know for sure, let's look at these tarot card readings. And that's when Fatima flipped out. And I thought that was a cool little addition because Fatima being from, I believe, the Middle East in the show, that makes perfect sense because more than likely, coming from either an Islamic background or just a Judeo-Christian background in general, most communities within that are very adverse to anything like tarot cards, any type of perceived witchcraft. But when you're in a world like this, you need to have an open mind. So that was kind of the tipping point where Tilly was able to convince Fatima to go ahead and do this tarot reading. But the tarot reading itself, I think, indicates that it's going to be a terrible death or transformation for Fatima because before the cards even gets put down, a crow crashes through the colony house and dies. Now, I did a little bit of research, and crows, black crows, when it comes to tarot card readings, symbolizes three things in together: death, change, and transformation. So we already know the night creatures at some point were human. So I think that crow coming through the window symbolizes that either Fatima or that child is destined to die and change into a night creature. That's my big prediction. So I don't think there's any way that Fatima can avoid that. It's going to be a tragic scene. And I'm going to go a little bit further. So before they started trying to do the tarot readings, we saw Elgin sitting in the chair sleeping. And when you have an ensemble cast like this, it feels like there's always going to be somebody that gets kind of the short end of the stick, unfortunately, because it's only so much time and character development you can do within an hour. And for this season, unfortunately, it looks like it's Elgin, at least for the first half. Really hasn't gotten a lot of screen time. I think he had one vision and that was it. But that one vision, I think, is very, very important because he saw a slender woman. I think her eyes were pulled out. It was just her skin. And we didn't know who that was. But now I'm thinking that might be Fatima. That might represent her because it's happening in Colony House. Similar kind of look to a degree, or at least body type. So I think he might be having visions of what eventually is going to happen to Fatima once his child is born. So something to keep an eye out there, but I really do not now see any type of good ending for Fatima and her baby. Next, let's go to Boyd's plan. So I had my little grandiose idea last week. I said, okay, why don't they make Molotov cocktails? That's the obvious thing. You don't have to go into the tunnels. You can lob them at the night creatures from a safe distance, and eventually you can catch one that way because more than likely they're going to be adverse to fire like most creatures are in monster TV shows or movies. Boyd has something completely different. He was talking about using the talisman to kind of trap them in the house or something along those lines. That's too dangerous. I'm really on board with what Donna said about that because it's too easy. Well, it's too many variables. You don't know once they get inside whether that talisman will still work or be able to keep them from coming out. So that's too big of a risk and it's too confined an area. I like my Molotov idea better. Obviously they have enough alcohol and also look like oil as well to pull that off. But to Boyd's credit, you do a little temper tantrum, turns his back on Donna, but he is going to spend more time planning. So the next step is waiting outside in the bus to kind of observe how the night creatures move. But there's also big potential for that to fall apart because as we saw before Boyd showed up to, run this by Randall to get into the bus, Randall was having visions of those killer bugs again. So my concern is that when Boyd goes out there trying to scope things out, will something like that attack him mentally to try and get him off of that bus to be susceptible to getting killed by the night creatures? So many variables there. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But I like the fact that he's not as gung ho and is really trying to plan this out. And hopefully we'll see the execution of that in episode 4. The other big thing would be we finally got another Jade vision. This one was very interesting because it coincided with Christy being trapped in a bear trap that no one saw because of the snow. Luckily, they were able to get her out, but I'm more interested in what that town represented. I didn't think about this before when Jim and Kenny were out there, but when they first walk up to that area, you have those figures, and they look like they're supposed to represent the missing children, is what I think. And I think the area where that is, that's where the old town was. Maybe it was Civil War time or Revolutionary War time, whoever was living back then. That was their town originally. And I think they used those figures to keep the night creatures at bay. I think for whatever reason, they were kind of like the patron saints, and the night creatures weren't able to pass that. And because of that, I think what Jade saw initially with the red rocks and everything, and the person impaled on the wall, I think that was how the night creatures tried to terrorize them. It's like, okay, if we can't get into the town, we're gonna, if we catch anybody, we're gonna have them strung up outside of the town so you can see exactly where they are and what your fate is going to be if we catch you. That's one theory. But the other thing I thought of, the second vision Jade had after he was trying to help set Chrissy's ankle, the person that was staked through the eye was drinking out of a skull, drinking blood. So the next thing I'm thinking is maybe things imploded in the town because you had the one side that was relying on the children and looking at them as protectors and saints, the deceased children. Maybe there was a death cult that sprung up within the town as well. And that side actually worshiped the night creatures. And maybe the person that was strung up, he was one of the people that was an agent for the night creatures, because why else would he be drinking blood like that out of a skull? So it could have been he represented the finishing product. If Sarah would have gotten completely turned, she would have looked like that person as far as drinking out of blood and completely under the night creature's whim. So those are my two little theories on that whole scenario. I hope they do go back out there eventually and get more information. But it seems like the only way they'll get more information is Jade is willing to go out there and make himself susceptible to visions. So I don't know if he's willing to do that because he said he's about to run out after spending, I don't even think they were there a full day before he was flipping out. So we'll see where things go there. But that's my theory on that old town area where they were and what that could possibly mean or what it did mean for the original from inhabitants. Closing thoughts. I have to say, I love and I hate Dale. He gets on my nerves, but he's also hilarious. I think we all have known a Dale type, whether at work or in our family, just always complaining and always have something to say. So it's kind of funny. He was always he got into it with was it Ellis last season in Colony House? So it looks like he's right at it again, and he's going to be getting into it with someone else. So well, the fact that he's getting more screen time, I feel like something is going to happen. He's going to get involved in something and mess something up. So it possibly could be Boyd's plan that he messes up. So keep an eye on Dale because he's always involved in some type of um, negative action. So, and God forbid if him and Randall get together. So keep them both away from each other. But yes, keeping an eye on Dale. I mentioned earlier, I thought it was hilarious when Boyd was pouting for a second when Donna told him he has to work harder to come up with a plan. He was not trying to hear that whatsoever. And I understand because he's going under a lot. And that's the pressure of being the leader, the sole leader in the town. This is 2 episodes now without any night creatures, so I think we need them back. I'm starting to miss them a little bit. And even though I'm still upset about what they did to T and Chen, we need them back. So I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing them in episode 4. It's been 2 weeks now, so night creatures will come back. I think that's when we'll see Boyd try and implement his plan or get the information he needs to implement his plan when he watches their movements. So expect the night creatures back in episode 4. Now we have new inhabitants. I didn't mention that earlier with Tabitha's segment. So I counted, you had the driver, there was one EMT in the back, but we have at least two EMTs. We know that. And there was another young lady to the side behind Tabitha that was a police officer. So that was their police escort. So at least we'll have somebody else in the town that has some firepower or has expertise shooting guns. But the question is, how quickly will they acclimate? Because if they get there at night, um, now we have a problem because, of course, they're not going to believe that there's monsters out there initially, and that can end up with all of them being slaughtered and not even being able to acclimate themselves into the town and be assets. So we need to keep an eye on that. I don't think all of them are going to make it, but hopefully enough of them um, understand what's going on and get to safety if they happen to get to the town when nightfall comes. So I think we have a big episode 4 coming up, the reunion of Victor and Henry. That's going to be big. I think that's going to take up a lot of screen time. Boyd's plan as far as how he implements that and if it goes awry. First his reconnaissance mission, and maybe in the second half of the episode, actually trying to capture one. And then let's talk the town response to Tabitha is going to be interesting as well. I think most of them are going to be upset because she had an opportunity to get more information, particularly with the tree, and kind of threw it all away. So yes, she brought Victor's father back and a couple more people, but really no kind of rescue plan. So I think they're really going to be on her about that. But at the very least, she'll be able to get reunited with her children, with Jim. I think that's going to settle things down in that family a lot. And we see also that they were trying to mess with Jim a little bit more. As soon as he was having issues with the children and they stormed out, the phone rings. So they see Jim as vulnerable at this point. So I think a lot of that might slow down a little bit now that Tabitha's back. He should be able to shoulder the load and not be exuding that doubt and unrest that the night creatures, I think they instinctively feel and they tap into. So I think Jim will be okay for now. So that is my recap of episode 3 entitled Mousetrap. Solid episode. Was missing the night creatures. Was a little bit annoyed about how Tabitha ended up back in the town, but overall a solid episode. But I think we're really going to start picking things up in episode 4 and definitely by episode 5 because then we're already at mid-season. So we really need to start pushing forward with getting some answers about where they are and what's up with the tower and the children. So I think we need to get some answers there in the second half. And I think Jade, I said this earlier, needs a big win as far as connecting the dots on one of the mysteries that he has. One of his visions has to make sense at this point where he's able to solve what's going on. So I'm looking forward to that hopefully happening, if not in the mid-season, by the season finale. So thank you for your time once again with this review of episode 3. Make sure you turn on your notifications, like and subscribe, and I'll be back here covering every single episode for the duration of the season. The episodes do post on YouTube roughly around about 1 a.m. after the episode premieres on MGM Plus. However, feel free to wait, and I try to make sure that I don't put any spoilers in the thumbnail or anything like that until this show actually airs at 9 p.m. Eastern time on regular MGM TV. So thanks again and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will see you guys next week to cover a new episode of From. Take care.